Welcome back to the deep dive. You know how sometimes in a book there are these moments, maybe just a few pages, but they feel supercharged somehow.
Oh, definitely. Like they cast a shadow or maybe a light over everything else that happens.
Exactly, they just echo. And today we're diving deep into one of the absolute classic examples of that. We're talking Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre.
Ah, yes. A brilliant book.
And specifically, we're zoning in on that unforgettable Red Room scene. It's fascinated people, readers, critics, you name it, for ages, and we want to figure out why.
Right. So our goal today, our sort of mission, is to unpack all the different layers of meaning in the Red Room.
We'll look at what different critics have said, try to help you get a real handle on its impact, what it symbolizes in the novel, and maybe even, beyond the book itself.
And we've gathered insights for this from, well, a whole bunch of literary analyses and critical takes on Jane Eyre.
Okay, let's do it. Let's open the door to that famous Red Room.
So maybe we should start by just picturing the room itself. As a setting, I mean, it's genuinely up there as one of the most iconic spots in all of Victorian fiction.
It really is. People often mention it in the same breath as, say, the window scene in Wuthering Heights, right?
Exactly. So Brontë sets it up. It's described as a spare chamber, one very seldom slept in.
Uh-huh. But also one of the biggest, grandest rooms in the house.
Right, one of the largest and stateliest chambers in the mansion. And right in the middle, this huge bed, massive pillars of mahogany.
Hung with these curtains, deep red damask curtains. It stands out like a tabernacle, she writes, which is quite an image.
It really is. But you've got the windows, two large ones, but the blinds are always down, always drawn. And they're draped in similar red fabric.
And red everywhere else, too, isn't it? The carpet's red. There's a table with a crimson cloth.
Yes, crimson cloth. Yeah, the furniture, it's all this dark, polished, old mahogany. Wardrobe, chairs, the dressing table.
But it's not all red and dark, is it? There are these sort of odd contrasts that make it even creepier, I think.
That's a great point. The walls, for instance, they're a soft fawn color, but with a blush of pink.
And the bed itself. The mattresses and pillows piled up are white. Stark white against all that red and dark wood.
And there's an easy chair nearby, cushioned, also white. Brontë calls it a pale throne. It creates this really striking visual tension. Grandeur, but also starkness.
Yeah, and coldness. Beyond just how it looks, the whole feel of the room is chilling. Brontë uses words like chill, silent, solemn.
And there's a reason for that solemnity, isn't there? It has a grim history.
It does. It's the room where Mr. Reed, Jane's uncle, the one kind figure from her early childhood, died. That was 9 years before this scene.
He actually lay in state in that room. His coffin was carried out from there. So ever since, Brontë says, it's been guarded by this sense of dreary consecration.
Dreary consecration.
Yeah.
Wow, that captures it perfectly. Dread and memory all mixed up.
What's fascinating, though, is how Brontë describes it all. It's quite factual, almost understated in a way.
Right. Not overly dramatic in the description itself.
Exactly. But that curiously understated and undramatic description, as some critics call it, well, that's ironically what seems to have fueled this huge amount of critical interpretation over the years. It's like the sparseness invites you to fill in the blanks.
Okay, so let's get into those interpretations. If this room is so powerful, how have people tried to understand it? Where do we start?
Well, a really influential reading comes from Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar. Their idea is that the Red Room isn't just a room. It's like a symbol, a perfect representation of the whole society Jane feels trapped in.
Trapped, because she's this uneasy and elfin-dependent, as they put it. She doesn't quite belong.
Precisely. They see it as a patriarchal death chamber.
Yeah.
It's like the spirit of that male-dominated society where Jane has no real place. Actually, sharpens the angles of the furniture, enlarges the shadows, strengthens the locks on the door.
Wow, so the room embodies the oppression.
Yes. And the fact that it's the deathbed of a father figure, but one who wasn't really her father, just highlights her isolation, her vulnerability within that whole structure.
And Jane herself feels it, right? She says, alas, no jail was ever more secure. That line really hits hard.
It does. And Gilbert and Gumar connect that feeling directly to the broader theme of female imprisonment that runs right through the novel.
You see it everywhere, don't you? Her being sort of boarded up at Lowood School.
Her feeling like her options are so limited as a governess, that restricted field of effort.
And then, most dramatically, Bertha Mason locked away in the attic at Thornfield. It's like the Red Room is the first cage in a series of cages.
Exactly. They argue that the physical spaces in the novel, the rooms, the houses, they're not just settings. They are concrete images of female social oppression.
That feeling of shut-in helplessness is a physical reality, and that awful line Mrs. Reed uses.
If you don't sit still, you must be tied down. Chilling. It sums up that control perfectly.
So for Gilbert and Gumbar, the Red Room becomes this paradigm, this model, not just for Jane's inner turmoil, but for the whole drama of her situation. Orphan, governess, trapped in these roles, these houses.
And her desperate attempts to break free, whether through literal flight or even through things like starvation or, well, madness.
Okay, so that's a powerful social and feminist reading. But what about the more personal psychological impact on Jane herself?
Right, that's where someone like John Maynard comes in. He offers what gets called an Oedipal reading, basically looking at the family dynamics and Jane's relationship with parent figures.
So how does that apply here?
Well, Maynard points out the cruelty of it. Jane is punished by Mrs. Reed, her aunt, this uncaring and hostile mother figure, by being locked in the very room that reminds her of the one loving parent figure she vaguely remembers, her Uncle Reed.
Oh, that's brutal. Sending her to the place associated with kindness is a punishment.
Exactly. And he highlights that detail we mentioned earlier. The room is cold for all its warm colors because no fire is ever lit there.
Yeah, that really emphasizes the lack of warmth emotionally.
Precisely. For Maynard, the room brings up these intense reminiscences of a loving relationship. But they only serve to remind Jane how completely lost that love is now. It highlights the finality of her loss.
So the experience is fundamentally about alienation.
Yes, essentially one of alienation. It's a place of cold and oppression,
Yep.
exactly where, there should be warmth and affection like a family hearth.
And Maynard also sees this scene setting the stage for the whole book.
He does. He says it functions as a kind of symbolic preface to the entire work. It lays the groundwork for everything Jane will face.
Okay, so we have societal oppression, personal alienation. What other layers are there? Some critics connect it to female sexuality, right?
Yes, that's another really rich vein of interpretation. Elaine Showalter, for instance, talks about the room's sort of hidden corners.
What do you mean?
She mentions its Freudian wealth of secret compartments, wardrobes, drawers, and jewel chest. Think about all those places things can be hidden away. She argues this gives the room strong associations with the adult female body.
Interesting, like hidden depths or aspects of womanhood.
Kind of, and when Jane has that outburst, when she behaves like a mad cat as she's being dragged to the room, Showalter links that ferocity to the fleshly aspects of adult female sexuality.
Ah, so it's like an early suppressed glimpse of the kind of passion we later see much more overtly with Bertha.
Exactly. It foreshadows Bertha's role.
Yeah.
And Sally Shuttleworth picks up on this too, but focuses more on the blood.
The blood.
Yeah, the room's deadly and bloody connotations. She points out that Jane's head still ached and bled with the blow and fall she suffered just before being locked in.
Right, from the fight with John Reed.
Shuttleworth links this physical injury, the blood, to the onset of puberty and the whole difficult passage into womanhood.
So the trauma in the room mirrors the trauma of growing up female in that society.
Yes, capturing the bewildering, contradictory, and polluting effects of suppression within the female frame. It's about the body as well as the mind.
And this maybe helps explain that really strange moment when Jane sees herself in the mirror. That's always fascinated me.
Oh, the looking glass moment. It's incredible. She feels totally disconnected, alienated from her own reflection.
Can you remind us how she describes it?
Sure. He says, "My fascinated glance involuntarily explored the depth it revealed. All looked colder and darker in that visionary hollow than in reality."
And the strange little figure there gazing at me with a white face and arms specking the glow and glittering eyes of fear moving where all else was still had the effect of a real spirit.
A tiny phantom, half fairy, half imp.
Yeah.
It's like she doesn't recognize herself. She sees this other being.
Yeah, half fairy, half imp. It's such a striking image of her own otherness, her internal conflict.
And building on this idea of transformation and identity, Helene Moglen offers this really interesting paradox. She sees the Red Room, this coldly magnificent bedchamber, as also being something else entirely.
What's that?
She says it's all the color of blood, of fire, of passion, a kind of birth chamber.
A birth chamber. That sounds completely opposite to a death chamber or a prison.
It does, doesn't it?
Hmm.
But Moglen calls it a terrifying womb world, a place where Jane loses her sense of the boundaries of identity, feels an inhabitant of another universe, and from that chaos, she's born into a new state of being.
So it's the end of one phase and the start of another.
Exactly. For Moglen, it marks the end of the submission of childhood and the beginning of a new stage of growth. A painful birth, but a birth nonetheless.
And Adrienne Rich sort of develops that idea too, doesn't she? Seeing it as the moment Jane Eyre, the character we come to know, really begins.
Yes, Rich calls it the moment that the germ of the person we are finally to know as Jane Eyre is born. And what defines that person?
Someone determined to live and to choose her life with dignity, integrity, and pride.
Right. And Jane herself reflects on this later. She says her reason was basically forced into action by the sheer agony of the situation.
My reason was forced by the agonizing stimulus into precocious though transitory power, and resolve, equally wrought up, instigated some strange expedient to achieve escape from insupportable oppression. That word resolve seems key.
It is. But it's also important, as the critics point out, that this newfound resolve isn't entirely rational or mature yet.
What do you mean?
Well, her strange expedient involves fantasy. She thinks about running away, or if that could not be effected, never eating or drinking more and letting myself die.
Ah, right. So even in her defiance, there's still this element of childish desperation or extreme thinking.
Exactly. And this internal turmoil, this birth of resolve mixed with fear, it culminates in that terrifying vision she has.
The supernatural element? She genuinely thinks she sees something, doesn't she?
Oh, absolutely. She's thinking about her Uncle Reed, how kind he would have been. She had never doubted that if Mr. Reed had been alive, he would have treated me kindly.
And she worries his spirit might appear.
Yes, she thinks his spirit, upset by how she's being treated, might rise before me in this chamber. She's even scared that if she cries too loudly, it might wake up some preternatural voice to comfort me.
And then she sees the light.
That's right. A light gleamed on the wall, it stirred, and then it glided up to the ceiling and quivered.
And she's convinced this is it. A ghost. A vision.
She believes it's a herald of some coming vision from another world, and the terror just completely overwhelms her.
Can you describe that escalation?
Brontë writes, "My heart beat thick. My head grew hot. A sound filled my ears, which I deemed the rushing of wings. Something seemed near me. I was oppressed, suffocated. Endurance broke down. I uttered a wild, involuntary cry."
That cry, that wild, involuntary cry, it feels so significant.
It absolutely is, because that cry echoes later in the book, doesn't it?
Yes. It directly anticipates the cries we hear from Bertha's room in the attic at Thornfield.
And even earlier, the strange noises Jane hears outside her own chamber door at Thornfield, which turn out to be Bertha. It links them through sound, through this expression of unbearable distress.
And the visual echoes, too. That glimpse of the spirit face in the mirror.
It comes back, doesn't it? On the night before her wedding to Rochester is supposed to happen, Jane looks in the mirror.
And sees not herself, but Bertha, wearing Jane's wedding veil. It's terrifying.
It completely blurs the lines between them again. And think about fire. The red room is all red symbolism.
And later, Jane is called to Rochester's bedroom, another male-dominated chamber, but this time it's literally red with flames because Bertha has set it on fire.
Wow, I hadn't quite connected it that directly before. It's like a horrific, fiery reenactment.
Exactly. So you can really see how this red room incident kicks off this whole network of connections, this web of associations.
That, as critics say, holds Jane and Bertha together and apart, like twinned opposites of female adult being. Their fates are just inextricably linked, starting right here.
Which circles back beautifully to John Maynard's point we mentioned earlier that the scene acts as a symbolic preface to the whole novel.
It really does. And it's not just us, looking back as readers, who see the connection. Jane herself remembers it.
Oh, right. She recalls the frightful episode in the dark and haunted chamber at key moments later on, doesn't she?
Yes, like after Mr. Brocklehurst humiliates her at Lowood. She draws strength, or at least perspective, from having survived the Red Room. It becomes part of her personal narrative, her resilience.
So it functions as memory within the story as well as a structural marker for us.
Precisely. And speaking of structure, Sally Shuttleworth makes a fascinating point about how these repetitions, these echoes of the Red Room experience, actually challenge the way Victorian novels were typically written.
How so? What are the rules she thinks it breaks?
Well, she argues that Jane Eyre looks like it's following the standard pattern of a Bildungsroman, a coming-of-age story where the character grows and learns in a steady, linear way.
Right, a progressive development.
But Shuttleworth argues that Jane Eyre actually does the opposite. It offers the very reverse of a progressive, linear history.
What does she mean by that? How is it the reverse?
Her point is that Jane, fundamentally, doesn't change that much. Jane, as child, presents the same psychological formation as Jane in adulthood.
Hmm. So the core conflicts just repeat.
Yes. The history she offers is that of a series of moments of conflict.
Yeah.
The endless reiteration of the same. The same struggles, the same inner battles, just playing out on different stages.
That's quite a radical reading of the book's structure.
It is. And Shuttleworth concludes that because of this, not only the heroine but the novelistic form which shapes her are challenging conventional norms. The book itself is unconventional, mirroring its unconventional heroine.
Wow. So just from these few pages, this one incident, we get, well, everything. A symbol of societal cages, a site of personal trauma and alienation, a connection to female sexuality and puberty, a literal birth chamber for Jane's resolve, and a key to the novel's entire structure and its challenge to convention.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? It shows just how layered and powerful Bronte's writing is. The Red Room isn't just a scary scene, it's a crucible. It forges Jane's identity and sets the stage for everything.
It really is a masterclass in using a single space to resonate through an entire narrative.
Absolutely. It has such an enduring significance.
So, to leave you, our listeners, with something to think about, maybe consider this. We all encounter prisons and maybe even birth chambers in our own lives, right? Places or situations, literal or metaphorical, that confine us or force us to change.
That's a good thought.
How do those experiences shape us? How do they forge our own identities, our own resolve to live authentically? Perhaps in ways not so different from how the Red Room shaped Jane Eyre into the person she became.